Hi, in this video, I'm going to show you how to use MMCE for daily operations. So basically, we are going to go over four things. First is how to get started, right? Log into MMCE GUI or user interface or command line CLI. And then the second is use a wizard to create your first job, which is pretty easy. And then we are going to verify the status of the running job. We'll look at the logs, status and places we can check the status of the running workload. And then the last steps to troubleshoot, right? In case something goes wrong, where would you look and to understand what might be the issue. So with that, we're going to dive into the details. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is log into the MMCE console, right? So we click on here. This is the one I'm going to use, open address, and that brings up our GUI. I click on connect to the App Center. I've already logged in before, so it memorized my ID and the password. So we just go straight in. Okay, so I don't have any job running right now. And then I have some previous jobs running from yesterday, from a few days ago. And you can find those archive jobs through this button here. So click on that and it'll give you some of the previous ran jobs, right? Some of them was completed successfully, others failed. We'll look at both in a moment. So let's first talk about how we can submit a new job. In the last video, I talked about where you can find all the images of where all the jobs are located, right? These are all the applications you can run. And for any application that you don't see, you can come over here, you can add a new image. That's pretty easy. Okay, so let's create our first job. Let's submit our first job, right? So click on here. Let's give a name. Let's call it Cell Ranger Demo, right? And then we will select the image, Cell Ranger, and the job script. So the job script basically is the location of where my job script is located. And in the job script, I will define what is the executable, where's the binary, where's my files, my source file located. So if I'm doing any genome sampling, genome sequencing, this is where I specify where other sample files are located, as well as where I want to store the results too, right? Typically, we use S3 to store the source data, and also use S3 to store the result data. We'll show you how to do that. And the next tab here is the instances. So this is how much CPU and the memory you want to use when you first launch it. So I'm going to use 4 CPU, 16 gig of memory. Okay. With a feature in our software called Wave Writer, which we'll talk about in another video, you can really start the application with any CPU memory size. And the software is going to figure out automatically what is the right size of the VM you need to use. And then it will do that it will do all that automatically. It will move it to a bigger VM if it needs to. So this is really the starting point on what the VM size should be when we first start out. Okay, the next one is the volume. So this is where we define how much storage we want to use while this application Cell Ranger is running, right? So I'm going to use, I'm going to give it 30 gigabytes of storage for its runtime. The next is VM policy. So you have three down here. So let's go over what is the bottom two, right? So the first is spot only. So that means I will always look for a spot instance when I launch the job. If there's no spot available, I'll just wait, right? I won't do anything. The next one is on demand. On demand means that every time I launch the job, I will always use a on demand instance for whatever the reason, right? I mean, we know on demand is the most expensive, but it's also available right away for any instance that you want. So you can choose on demand if you like. The third one is the most interesting. It's called spot first. Essentially, it will always look for a spot instance first, and it will try that several times. So you can say, I want to retry every 10 minutes, 3 times. So if after 30 minutes, I don't find any spot instance, the software is going to automatically look for a on-demand instance to get started. And then while it's running on demand, it will continue to look for a spot instance in the background. If there is a spot instance becomes available, it will go back to that spot instance again. It will essentially migrate the job from the current on-demand instance to a spot instance, right? So that's what spot first is all about. So now we have all the information filled out. You can see here on the screen. I can copy this. So I will be able to do this from the GUI if I from the command line if I want to in the future. I can also save to my notepad, right? So I can use that as a reference. But since I already have this in the GUI, I can just click on submit, and this will submit the job. Okay. So after the job is running, and then we will look at the details about this particular job. Okay, so now you can see here under jobs, this job is running. Right? If I refresh, it will show you the current status of this job. So I'll run your demo. So it's basically initializing this job. And if you look under AWS EC2 instance, you'll also find there's a new job is being initialized, right? This is the machine that is going to carry out Cell Ranger workload that we just launched. So they all correspond. Okay, let's refresh the AWS. You can see here now this instance is fully running, and we go back to the MMC GUI. You can see here this job has been running for about 5 minutes, and the status is executing, and it has a machine allocated with this IP address with 4 CPU and a 16 gig of memory. That's great. That's all running perfectly as we expect. And this is the details of this job, right? This is the machine EC2 instance ID that we're running, the IP address here, public IP and private IP. And under advanced setting is showing that it's spot first, right? This is the policy we adopted. And on the top, you can see here, this is the current log files for this job. And under logs, there are more logs, you can look at it. The 2 of them that is most interesting, one of them is the job events. And this tell you what's the current status of this job is, right? You can see here, the VM has started, the container has launched, right? So that means the application is now running, and all the data volumes have been mounted. Okay, that's good. And then the other log we want to look at is the output. So this is the output of Cell Ranger, right? This is the status of this job that we just kicked off. It's only been a few minutes, so you can see here it's still in the early stage, right? It's downloading the data from the S3 hub, from S3 bucket, and then once that is downloaded, it will start processing that data. So this has only been about 5 minutes, and we'll come back in a little while to see what's the current status of this job, as well as after it finished processing. Okay, so after about 10 minutes, this job has been completed. So let's take a look at the overall status. So we've seen the logs before, right? So we've seen the job status. You can see here job completed. Once the job is completed, the VM actually gets reclaimed, so we no longer incur cost of this running VM, right? It's being shut down. That's great. And also in the output, right, that at the bottom, you can see here, ready to upload the results. So that's all completed, done, right? Shutting down the instance is all done. That's great. And the other metrics is very, very interesting. We want to look at it is the memory and the CPU utilization during the entire run. You can see initially it wasn't using a whole lot of memory and CPU, but midway, right, it used a lot more, and then at the end it tails off. This is quite useful for us to look at it because on a small job like this, you may not be able to do much about it, but imagine you're running a much longer job, maybe a few hours or maybe even a few days. If the initial a few hours or many hours is only using small amount of memory CPU, you can really using a much smaller machine to run this, and then you can migrate to a bigger machine at the middle, right? And also move to a smaller machine at the end. So you can do that either manually or you can automatically using our software to do that. It will not kill your job. You can still continue the job, and that's the beauty of it. So we'll talk about that in the next video. So thanks for watching.